All right, I think we'll get rolling with who we have. If we have any late arrivers, we can get them caught up. But appreciate everybody jumping in here for tonight's conversation. I'm very excited for our guest tonight. We have Tyler Chamberlain-Simon here from the Tampa Bay Rays to talk a little bit about his baseball background and experience and his opportunities that he's kind of come through, and just want to have him share a little bit about his journey and have you all have a chance to hear a little bit about that and ask some questions. So Tyler, thanks for jumping in tonight. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you very much for having me.
Oh man, great to have you. I know it's a busy time of year for you, so I really appreciate you carving out an hour here or so for us. So, if you
Of
guys,
course.
absolutely. So if you guys can, just know that the chat box and Q and A are open. We'll have time for questions. If there's anything you want to hear, any questions you have for Tyler, just feel free to fire away in there. I'll monitor that a little bit as well. We'll definitely hang around after we're done chatting through some content as well. And if you guys have questions, fire away. And I will record tonight's conversation too. So if you feel like you missed anything, I'll send that out afterwards. Y'all can go back over that when you have a chance. So I'll send it out afterwards. And give us a follow on the social media accounts too. Always a plug there for those. Give us a follow. We'll share some good content there as well. All right, so let's get rolling here. We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna have time for Q&A. That's our simple agenda. Now, really quick, 30 seconds. Let me just highlight some upcoming workshops we have, guys. So check these out. Sign up for these. If you can't make them live, get the recordings. We're going to do some breakdowns with middle infielders, some breakdowns for some catchers. We're going to talk to the parents about navigating the cost of recruiting. So we got a lot of really good stuff coming up here in March, some spring season type of topics later in the month there as you guys get ready for your spring season. So if you can't make them live, get the recordings, just sign up for those. And so screenshot that page or check out your NCSA University. All right, cool. Let's get going. Tyler, again, appreciate the time. First of all, just if you don't mind, I'm sure these guys would love to just hear a little bit about just kind of what you're doing now, kind of your specific role that you have with the Rays organization there. And then I want to get into a little bit, kind of backtrack and kind of get to how you got there. But just kind of tell everybody here kind of what your current position is there with the Rays.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the director of baseball process and strategy with the Rays. I would say tough to describe everything that I do, but
Yeah.
I would say anything to do with pretty much anything to do with pro player acquisition. I have at least some small part in, some larger than other. In addition to that, or I should say as part of that, help to lead what is our pro scouting group. And that's a group of about 17, 18 scouts that we have who are
Mm-hmm.
all across the country. So I play a heavy part in leading that group and helping to leverage the information from that group as part of our decision-making process.
Mm-hmm.
But everything to do with pro player evaluation, free agency, minor league free agency, Rule 5, independent leagues, basically any sort of context in which we are looking to acquire a player on the professional side
Awesome.
is where my job
That's
is
that's
most
awesome.
involved with. Yeah,
Yeah, so just evaluation. A lot of it obviously is happening now during spring training, of course, but a lot of your work is in the off season too, right? Assessing moves that you guys make, people like that as well, correct?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there are certainly times in the off season where that's a busier time than
yeah,
this
yeah.
for us, even than say the start of the season. It really, for me personally, depends on how active
Hmm.
those parts of the calendar are in
Yeah.
terms of pro player acquisition.
Awesome, great stuff. So sounds like an awesome job. I'm very jealous, of course, that you get an opportunity to do that sort of work. But let's kind of take some steps back here. I would love to first of all just kind of have you talk a little bit about your background and kind of where you grew up, your background in baseball as a player, kind of in those early days. And I know you played some college baseball too. So kind of speaking to just sort of your journey in recruiting and kind of getting to that point. I just love for our guys to hear different stories for people who have gotten to some different places in their baseball journey, but going through the recruiting process. So would love to hear just a little bit about kind of your initial days, kind of those early days in baseball, and kind of how you got to that initial decision of wanting to even try to play college baseball.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in the north suburbs of Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Played ever since I was young, played travel ball since the age of 9. Um, and then played through high school, obviously. Played 2 years of varsity, did summer travel
Hmm.
baseball, did fall travel baseball. Knew that playing college was a desire for me. Um, didn't really know how to go about it,
Hmm.
if I was good enough. So I tried to research a little bit of that and ended up attending a few college camps, going to a few showcases. I think ultimately came to find out that I wasn't very good. And most of, I got a few bites from some Division III
Sure.
schools.
Yep.
Nothing really ever materialized from a Division I standpoint for me. And I actually had a few schools that I had discussed with. The only one that I actually went on an unofficial visit with was Grinnell College in
Oh
Iowa.
yeah. Yep.
And ultimately felt that I couldn't get myself to go to that small of a school and that
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
that close to home. Um, and so I actually decided to forego playing baseball in college
Hmm.
and go to a bigger school and one that I felt was desirable from an education standpoint,
Yeah.
and basically try my hand at walking on, or if not that, then playing club baseball.
Hmm.
And I just got really, really lucky that in their open tryout as a freshman, they had some space. They were looking for a catcher. I was a catcher, and they said, "Yeah, we'll take you on the team, effectively as a bullpen catcher." And more or less, that's kind of the role that I played for the
Hmm.
4 years that I was at Tulane.
Hmm.
Um, was as a bullpen catcher, but an incredible experience,
Yeah.
and certainly got a lot better in the
Yeah.
time that I was there.
And you kind of went into that sort of knowing that this may be kind of the role you were going to take, but you were willing to just kind of, hey, I want to have an opportunity to be part of, be around this program, be a part of it, and see where it takes me.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think my mindset as a player was always I'm going to do my best to
Yeah.
force their hand and try
Yeah.
and get some playing time, and that
Yeah.
was that was always how I went about it. And I think
Hmm.
that's probably part of the reason that they felt comfortable sticking, having me stick
Sure.
around for 4 years on the team there. So,
And it's all about finding the right college fit, right? Like, so for you, Tulane made a lot of sense for you. Obviously, academically very strong. Just
mhm.
made a lot of sense for you to find that right college fit. And then, it'll hopefully make the baseball happen. But, that's really at the end of the day here, really about finding that right college fit.
Yeah, it was very important for me
Yeah.
to feel like I was going to be going to a place that was really going to help me to learn and grow as a
Yeah.
person and set me on a right path for um, post-college life, I suppose.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I think part of it too was the uniqueness of Tulane and the city, and being from Chicago. I kind of viewed college as wanting to broaden myself and to
Hmm.
have a totally different experience for what I knew
Yeah.
was probably going to be 4 years.
I love that. Love that. That's an awesome journey. Now, all right. So you're on the team there. Had that opportunity to be sort of around the program and observe what a Division I program looks like and high level play. Probably were around some guys who ended up like moving on into like the pro ranks and some of those kind of things, right? And were able to kind of experience that. But talk about like, sort of off the field then. Academically, what was your major or majors? What kind of like internship or opportunities did you have that sort of set you on the path to where you got to today? Like once you were in college, what were some of the opportunities and experiences that you had there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, uh, I was a double major in finance and business law
Mm,
through the business school. And initially thought in school that the finance path was the one that I was going to take.
sure. Yeah.
So started to push some internship opportunities um, within the finance space.
Mm,
So I did I took an internship with an insurance company my freshman year, summer in downtown Chicago. Um, And then sophomore year college, I'm trying to remember if it was sophomore or junior year, but at some point in my college career,
Yeah.
one of those summers, I had an internship lined up with Chase Bank in Chicago, and
Hmm.
interestingly, they had to pull the internship from me
Mm.
because they ended up hiring far more than what their allotment ultimately ended
Hmm.
up being. So I was kind of looking for something at that point and ultimately landed on becoming what was a high school travel baseball coach for the summer. And I think
A little bit of a
it was,
different path.
yeah, yeah. This wasn't an epiphany moment or anything, but I think along somewhere through that summer, my mindset started to shift because I
Hmm.
enjoyed that as much as I did. That um, while I certainly enjoyed finance, that working in just the idea of working in baseball became a bigger presence in my head and more of a
Yeah,
possibility. And I started to try to push that from a networking perspective and from a research knowledge standpoint and learn more and more about it and really just started to go head first down that path
sure.
and really have not looked back.
Awesome. So that was kind of during your college years. So now we finish up. We're done with college. We're done with school. We've had a little bit of some opportunities there. What were some of your first experiences out of college that kind of again kind of got you going down the path? And how did you end up using some of those experiences to sort of build maybe that resume or build some of that networking like you talked about to get that journey started?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I did that was very intentional, trying to get a job in baseball was I attended the baseball winter meetings
Sure. Yeah.
my senior year in college. So December of my senior year in college, I went to Nashville, which is where they were that year, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I said I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try and figure this out and put myself out there and see how it goes. And um, I tried to basically get in touch with anybody that I could that I knew would
Hmm.
be at those meetings. And essentially what happened is one contact turned into two, turned into
Hmm.
four,
Hmm.
turned into eight. And, a year or two later, I know, I know somebody from 10 of the 30 teams
Yeah.
who can let me know, hey, we have these internships available, apply here.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, But my first job out of college was with Stats. It was Stats LLC at the time. I believe it's Stats Perform now. And I took that knowing that I finished school in June, that most MLB teams for the positions they were hiring, that those were going to start in March or
Gotcha.
April or
Yep.
right around the start of the season. So it was
Hmm.
very difficult to find an opportunity that would be starting when my college career was finishing.
Hmm.
So it was
Hmm.
um, going to Stats and getting some experience there with the intention of trying to ultimately land with a
Hmm.
team the following season. So that experience with Stats was fantastic. My first real foray into, I
Hmm.
would say, sports data collection, if
Sure.
you
Yep.
will, and really spent a lot of time charting major league games and games over in Japan as well. But it got me really familiar with identifying pitch types and
Hmm.
pitch data, and I think that has played a big role really in kind of jumping me into a scouting type of career. I mean, it was certainly introductory to some degree,
Sure.
but it
Yeah.
kind of set the foundation, if
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
will.
Yeah.
Um, and then from there, my first internship with a major league team was the following year, and that was a video internship with the Chicago Cubs.
Hmm. Hmm.
Spent spring training and the first 3 months in Mesa, Arizona, and then the next 3 months with their Northwest League team, which at the time
Hmm.
was the Boise Hawks.
Hmm.
And that was working as part of those teams, along with the entire staff, all the players, basically collecting six. video angles for each game, along with charting those games,
Yeah.
and uploading all of that information to the Cubs system.
Which, if you think about your background in college, the finance background, there's probably some crossover there, right? With some of the, just sort of maybe the numbers, the data, the collection of, analyzing, trends of certain things, directions, this and that with metrics and so forth. There's probably some crossover with some of that, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I think you said it well. I feel like looking back on my major in finance,
Yeah.
there's a lot of the very specific, problem solving, specific formulas that that we were taught in that program. I don't necessarily use those
Mm-hmm.
exact formulas today, but I think the general theme of problem
Yeah.
solving and that kind of analytical mindset that it helped to build for me, from a general standpoint, that is absolutely something that is applicable,
That's awesome.
and has been for my entirety in this job.
Absolutely. Now, if anyone is any bit more than like a casual baseball fan, maybe not every casual baseball fan, but maybe a step above that, probably knows the Rays have really been at the forefront, right, of a lot of the analytical and uses of analytics and things like that, as far as like strategy, game planning, acquiring players, et cetera. I'm a Cleveland guy too, so kind of that same sort of idea of like the smaller market teams, right, getting the most, stretching things as far as they can. But would you say that that is something that maybe drew you to the Rays? Would you say that you maybe in some way were, part of kind of bringing some of that? Was that something more that, hey, it just sort of like was a nice marriage that you really could buy into that and, you could join with that? Kind of talk a little bit about, I mean, I'm just kind of curious, sort of like how the Rays became one of those, franchises that really sort of bought into a lot of the analytics and so forth.
Yeah, so I mean, really a lot of that actually probably took root before I even started
Sure.
with the
Yeah. Yeah.
team. But it has certainly only grown since then. And I
Mm-hmm.
think part of the organizational culture is what drew
Mm-hmm.
me to
Mm-hmm.
them, which I think is one of curiosity and creativity
Mm-hmm.
and open-mindedness, and being an organization where it doesn't ever feel like somebody's looking over your shoulder, and instead it feels like you can throw crazy ideas out there because that's what we have to do.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So that's kind of the culture that we have here, and in looking at some potential options of teams to work for, I think the more and more that I learned about this organization and what it was
Sure.
about, and in particular the specific people that I
Mm-hmm.
got to interact with, played a big role in me having as much interest as I did in this specific organization, and um, me sticking around to this day and really
Sure.
enjoying it as a place to work.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that that's important for people to think about as well. Whether you're a young guy listening in here today and you're just kind of thinking about what would I even want to major in college, think about the things that you are interested in. Even look at the end product process and then kind of see what steps it might take for you to get there, right? And so sometimes you can work backwards. There's multiple paths, right? I think about guys like Theo Epstein, right? I mean, he wasn't a sports management major, I think a lot of times people think like, oh, it's just a bunch of people who I got to look for a college as sports management. That's probably not the case at all, right? For most of the people that you're around.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have people from very different
Yeah.
backgrounds
Yeah.
across our organization.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think there are certain things that are probably
Yeah.
a little bit more applicable than
Mm-hmm.
others. But I think some common themes are some of the culture things that I talked
Yeah.
about, that a
Yep.
lot of our people are super bright and creative, and
Mm-hmm.
I think generally just interested in problem solving and how
Yeah.
can I make an impact.
Awesome. Awesome. If you guys have any questions coming to mind, don't be shy. throw them in the chat box there, throw them in the Q&A. Happy to start to get to some of those. But I would love to Tyler, ask you a little bit about just some advice that you may have for our guy. We have a lot of kids that a lot of their goals maybe of course, hey, play professional baseball, right? But for most of our guys, for most of anybody who's in this business, that doesn't necessarily happen, like to be the guy on the field. But there's a lot of opportunities that may be adjacent, right? And you're one of those guys. So just kind of talk about some of the things you've learned in your journey, some advice you may have for guys who are in like their high school years now. It's things they can do to be thinking about or preparing for to potentially put themselves in a direction to be working in the game of baseball in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I think my number one recommendation would probably be to talk to different people and to ask different questions of different people, to basically be a sponge for what are the opportunities that are out there and learn as much as possible about what could this look like? What does it involve? Does it fit my skill set? Does it fit my interests? And really just try to just gather as much information as you can that can kind of help put you on what is your best path.
Absolutely.
So I think I would say generally just networking and researching and trying to learn as much as possible about what's out there is probably my top recommendation, I would say.
Awesome. Now, as far as being a college athlete, former college athlete yourself, being in the part of the college baseball program there, how do you think that plays into just when it comes to employers in general looking at potential applicants, things like that? Where does kind of being a college athlete sometimes play into some strengths, on a resume? If you're looking at, obviously you're in the sports world, so that may be part of it, but not everybody that you work with necessarily probably had to be a high level player, right? But how does being on a college roster sort of demonstrate other skills, that could be very applicable in their careers down the road?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've certainly lived that, and so
Yeah.
and I've interviewed plenty of candidates as well. So I think there's a lot of themes that I've taken from being a college athlete, and that's you know that's that's hard work, that's responsibility, that's attention to detail, time management's
Yeah.
huge. And so I think a lot of those things for college athletes, I think if you are interviewing for a job, I think that to me that probably stands out, or at least
Yeah.
it would be my hope that that kind of job candidate comes with some of those qualities. And then I certainly think for the baseball specific part of it, while it is absolutely not a prerequisite for us to be a high level player or even have played to be part of this organization. There's it in most cases it can be helpful,
Yeah.
or at least be applicable to certain parts of the organization or the specific job for sure.
Awesome. So I always like to get the perspective from guys like yourself who are obviously in the world there of identifying players that may be people to bring in for your organization. A lot of our guys may wonder like, hey, how has like player evaluation changed these days? With the shortening of the MLB draft, cutting it in half a few years ago, a lot of the transfer portal scenarios in college baseball nowadays, which guys are older and they're sticking around longer in college, so it's there's a lot of differences, things that have changed quite a bit over the years. How have you guys as a professional MLB organization sort of looked at, maybe addressed some of the differences, the changes that are happening around just sort of college baseball, the amateur baseball realm, and how you're evaluating players? How do you think that things have changed for you guys, if it has at all, as far as like evaluating or identifying players?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there have been a lot of changes,
Yeah.
like you've said. I have probably a little less familiarity with the amateur side than the pro side.
Sure. Yeah.
The major change on the pro side for sure is what you said, is is both the shortening of the draft as
Hmm.
well as the player cap that's been instituted. So whereas
Hmm.
prior you'd see minor league systems that would have, and the contraction of the minor leagues. So
Yes. Yep.
you, typical pro team used to have six or seven, eight minor league
Yeah.
teams and 300 plus players, and now we're limited to 165 players during. So
Mm.
it almost, for some organizations, almost cut the number of players in half, which is crazy. Um, the the other huge change on our end is that is just the data revolution for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We have more information from a data standpoint on players than we ever have, and it
Yeah.
continues to grow. In particular, on the professional side, but it's growing on the amateur side as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So from an evaluation standpoint, we've needed to work kind of in tandem, um, scouting group with our analytics group, and kind of working through how do we blend the objective and the subjective, and how
Sure.
do we challenge both of those processes at the same time, and to get them to work in conjunction with each other.
Absolutely. Now, how would you say that the evaluation between the sort of the college players versus the high school players, when you guys are looking at sort of the draft, right, or looking at just maybe amateur free agents or things like that, how has that maybe changed a little bit over the last few years? I mean, obviously, like you said, with the contraction of the minor leagues, more of those guys that might have been playing in like Boise, Idaho, like single A ball, are probably playing in like the ACC or SEC or in the Pac-12 now when they might have been off playing. So, how have you seen that maybe that trickle down has potentially affected who you're looking at in the amateur leagues? Are you guys looking at less high school players, more college guys? What have you kind of seen like as far as your organization goes?
Yeah, I'm a little bit further from it,
Okay. Okay.
but from my view,
Yeah.
it does seem like we are probably spending a little bit more time
Yeah.
with the college players,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a little bit less time with the high school players. I think that's stemming from both the fewer number of
Mm-hmm.
spots.
Yep.
I think there's also a um, I think it's a little bit more difficult to get a player to sign out of high school these
Yeah.
days,
Yeah. Yeah.
in particular with the NIL money and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
what colleges can offer these
Mm-hmm.
days. I mean, the facilities are better than they've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
So from my afar view, it seems like there's been a it's slanted a little bit more
Yeah.
towards prioritizing college, but certainly still. Getting plenty of looks at high school players as
Oh
well.
yeah. Absolutely. I think the way you said it perfectly. Like if the number of roster spots that you guys have that you can have like contractually signed guys is like
Right.
half of what it was, 5 or 6 years ago, that just it's less likely they're going to take a chance on the 6'6" farm boy who's throwing 88 and throw a 40th round draft pick on the kid and see what happens. We got to get more of the guys that seem like they might be a little bit more of a sure thing with those roster spots.
Right. There's a little bit more pressure
Yeah. Yeah.
to feel like you have some confidence in the
Yeah.
player, or that that you're giving a
Yeah.
million point five signing bonus to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. All right. So we've had a couple questions come in here. One question I wanted to get to here. So we touched a little bit, Tyler, on just sort of the resumes and so forth, but maybe talk a little bit more about how being a college baseball player, if you're looking at that versus a guy or someone who maybe applied that doesn't have the college background experience on there. Just maybe speak if you have some other additional thoughts on that, on how that resume might look a little bit different, a little bit stronger. What are some other factors? What are some things that might come into your mind when you're looking at that potential applicant on a resume there?
Yeah, sure. So I think other important aspects of resumes that we would look for. I mean, certainly the overall education
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
quality, and what's the program and what's been studied. I think a huge thing though is just the experience that the candidates had. What kind of initiative have they taken?
Sure. Yep.
Even beyond just their major and their schooling. what kind of initiative have they shown trying to um, push on something in baseball, get some new
Mm,
experience, try and create something new. I mean, that'd probably be my one of my other
yeah.
recommendations is to really put yourself out there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something tangible that you're
Hmm.
creating necessarily. I
Hmm.
mean, that can help, of course, uh, but pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and into something that you feel like you want to learn more about, that you already are, you might be passionate about.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say challenging yourself to like pushing your bounds to
Hmm.
learn more about certain areas within baseball or adjacent to it, whether
Sure.
it's some kind of modeling, problem solving,
Yeah.
um, class or application or
Hmm.
what have you,
Yeah.
so long as it's somewhat applicable to what what our organization's trying to do.
Awesome. I also live in a excuse me. I live in a town where we have like summer college baseball. You know that we've got like, the
Mhm.
Kalamazoo Growlers in the Northwoods League here. I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and so I mean that's run like a professional organization in the summertime. Like I hope my wife and I hosted players, and so we got to be sort of intimately involved with the organization. And I mean, even though the players aren't paid, obviously it's like a professional experience, the professional schedule for those guys. So even just if you live in a town that has those kind of organizations, opportunities. If you're a student in college or even in high school, get involved with some of those. Like just learn the ropes. Get involved with like the fan experience and those kind of things, just to kind of get your foot in the door and get to know some people. I mean, I would imagine that would be something that would be really strong on some resumes too that you're looking at for potential guys in your organizations as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think and to your point, there are so many things out there
yeah, yeah,
that you could potentially try and that could be working for one of your college's sports teams. It
sure,
could be even
yeah,
working for a different sport
yeah,
than you're accustomed to or want to
definitely,
work with. Um, it could be researching certain websites or articles. It
yeah,
could be working for a pitching facility.
hmm,
There's so much out there.
yeah,
And I would just say that'd be my recommendation is just to explore what's out there, find
yeah.
something that draws you in, that you feel passionate about, and then really push on it.
I love that, Coach. I want you to put your hat on, like your player evaluation hat on. So we had a player asking about, hey, what's the best way for me to get colleges maybe interested in me? Now I know you're more in the professional realm, but
Sure.
in some generalities,
Mhm.
what's some good things that guys, if they're in high school right now, what are some of the kind of skill things, the kind of things they can be doing to make themselves better baseball players? Just kind of some advice from someone who evaluates guys at the professional level.
Gosh, yeah. So, I would say, I mean, I can go from my own experience.
Yeah,
I think one area that going back that I wish that I would have done differently is I feel like I was always the person who prided myself on working extremely hard, was very diligent, um, but uh, my practice was not very intentional.
yeah, yeah,
So I would be the person who would go to the batting cages at 7 p.m. and stay there for 3 hours, but I do the same thing for 3 hours
yeah,
every day over and over
yeah.
again.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I don't know, what tools everybody in this chat has available to them, but uh, there's so much out there now in
Hmm.
terms of tech and tools and research that if I could go back, I would start to dive into video of myself. I would start to dive into the tech that's out
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
I would start to be very intentional about I'm doing this with my swing, for example, and it's producing this kind of result. What if I tinker this? What if I
Yeah.
tinker that? I mean, if you're a high school athlete, like you don't want to be tinkering too much, but the
Hmm.
point is that is the intentionality of
Yeah.
the practice. Um, I would say in terms of getting attention from colleges, I suppose it probably depends on what caliber of player at. I imagine that if you're a super high caliber, like in those instances, probably some scouts will come to you or
Yeah.
you'll get invited to certain things. But like in my situation, for example, when I was mostly looking at Division III schools, um, I would say researching what are the best showcases that you
Hmm.
can go
Hmm.
to that are the best bang for your buck.
Hmm.
But really researching, because there are plenty out there that
Yep. Yep.
you're not going to get a ton of traction on. Um, but then I think taking the initiative and reaching out to various
Hmm.
schools, I think
Hmm.
is a totally a good way to go, because it's a lot of players that are out there,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there are many instances where colleges are not going to be aware of you unless you are the one reaching out.
Well, and that's the kind of stuff we talk about and give our guys, help with. I'm always glad to hear someone else reiterate those things. Being proactive, reaching out to coaches, but also I love the idea of identifying your maybe weaknesses, right, and
Mhm.
putting some work in. Like you said, it's easy to go and like just do what you do pretty well and just do that over and over and over. But maybe to take that next step, we got to put some time and effort into, hey, what are you not doing so well? And let's work on that a little bit too, mix some things up a little bit. So I love that advice. That's great advice. But as far as like the professional evaluation of college players, like thinking about sort of just kind of knowing maybe what a little bit they're looking at, other
Mhm.
than stats, of course, which is that's easy to kind of find. Anybody can go on a team's page and look at stats. What are the kind of things that those guys, those scouts, your scouts, those guys
Mhm.
are really trying to evaluate? What are they trying to pick up on? Besides just sort of the sort of box score type of stats.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can speak pretty well to that for sure. So
Yeah.
uh, if you are a position player, and this is just a very basic
Sure. Hmm.
level 1 overview. But if you're a position player, typically it's going to start with your foundation of what's called tools.
Hmm.
Um, and so that would be your hit, your power, your field, your run, and your throw. And typically of those five, um, probably the most important is going to be the hit. Um, Probably the least important is going to be a throw,
Hmm.
but you're trying to assess all of those tools to give you a profile
Yeah.
of who that position player is. So, for example, if somebody has a 40 hit, that means they're a slightly below average hitter. 50 power, they're an average hitter. 60 arm, they have a above average arm. 50 field, they're an average fielder, and then 50 run, they're an average runner. In scouting, we start to then talk about profiles.
Hmm.
So if you are, let's just say, a center fielder, uh, you're probably going to get scouted as a center fielder if you are a certain speed
Yep.
level or
Hmm.
above.
Hmm.
Um, as a first baseman, you are only going to get professional scouting attention if your hit and your power are above a
Hmm.
certain tier.
Hmm.
And I think the way that you can think about that is, who are the players that you see at the major league level? Well, first baseman at the major league level, like, you have to be a really, really good hitter to be a
Hmm.
first baseman at the major league
Hmm.
level, because your value is not typically not coming from defense
Hmm.
or from running.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how we work through. That's one example of various profiles. Um, the better the tools, probably just generally speaking, the better the tools, typically the better the prospect as a whole. And then on the pitching side, some major things that we look for: the pitch quality, the command of those pitches, the delivery, the arm action. I would say the general athlete, and that extends to position players as well.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's a quick general overview. I don't know if
Would you
if it'll push anything there.
No, so just to kind of maybe a follow-up question for that maybe some other people might kind of be thinking as well. Is that sort of a combination of metrics and eye test? Is it more of sort of an analytic? Hey, we're looking at the spin rate and we're looking at this and we're looking at that, or is it like, is there a combination of some of the eye test, that the guys are using as well?
Yeah, it's absolutely a
Yeah,
combination of the
yeah,
two. Yeah.
yep,
And we certainly have a good amount of data to where,
yeah,
if we didn't, I think the way that I would think about it is if we didn't have the eye test, we'd have a baseline with the
mm-hmm,
data. If we
mm-hmm.
didn't have the data, we'd have a baseline with the eye
Sure,
test.
yeah,
And we're trying to bring the two together
yeah.
as best as possible.
Yeah, yeah, great stuff. Awesome. All right, guys, if there's other questions, man, keep them coming. We got probably maybe a good 10 more minutes or so if we need it. So if there's any questions, but let's just kind of wrap a couple things up. And then, Tyler, I'd love to get some final thoughts from you. But just real quick,
Sure.
guys, going to take like 1 minute here. Check those roster openings. We have those coming in. If you're curious to know who we're hearing from and what programs are looking, we got those on there. If you want to get some updated matches, excuse me, and evaluations from our team, get your new videos up. Keep those coming so we can evaluate them, schedule those evaluation sessions. We can reach out to coaches on your behalf as well for those MVPs and elite members. So keep that in mind too. Got the contact info up on the screen. And so before anybody jumps out of here, let me just throw something in the chat box real quick here. I'd love to get some thoughts here to wrap up, but I just threw a link to a survey in there, guys. So if you got 30 seconds, man, hopefully tonight's session has been helpful. This conversation has been phenomenal. I hope that you guys have thought the same, but we'd love to get some feedback there on that survey. So fill that survey link out if you could. But Tyler, any other final thoughts? Anything that you had come into tonight, like hoping to pass along that I just did not get to in my questions? Any other just kind of words of advice or encouragement, for these guys as they're, pursuing college baseball, of course, but also maybe for some of those here that might be thinking, beyond? Any just kind of other final words of encouragement or advice that you had tonight?
Yeah, I would say just to follow what you're passionate in.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of my that has served me very well personally.
Yeah.
It's and why I changed from mindset in the middle of my college career to working in
Mm-hmm.
baseball, and was because I thought it was going to make me happy essentially, and I was
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
enjoy my job. And I really feel very fortunate and lucky that working in baseball, I want to go to work every day.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's been fantastic. So I would say follow what you're passionate in. And I would say just be curious, be inquisitive,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and take initiative with, what you're hoping to accomplish. I think
Yeah.
reaching out to as many people and learning and being part of something like this can only benefit towards ultimately um, pointing you in what is the right direction for you.
Awesome. Awesome. Great stuff. Well, if you don't mind, hang around for a couple minutes. I want to see
Yeah,
if there's
sure.
any other questions that pop in. Would love to see that. But if you guys have filled out that survey link and you're good to go, you'll feel free. Jump out if you're good, but we're going to hang around and answer any other questions that pop in. And yes, to the question in the chat box, I am going to send out a recording of this. So appreciate you asking that. Just to confirm, yes, I'll send out an email later on here to everyone who is in here with the recording, so you can go back over anything that we covered. But any other questions, any other topics, anything else you want to throw at Tyler here tonight? Questions or things you want to drill him on here? What you got? I do have to say too, man, before anybody goes, again, being a Cleveland guy, we do miss Yandy a little bit. I know he's been a pretty good addition for you guys over the last handful of years, but yeah, he
He's
was
been a good player.
yeah, he was one of those. It was like he kind of started to click a little bit, where it's like, hey, don't be so big and hit the ball on the ground, right? Like get the ball in the air a little bit. Like in Cleveland, he just crushed the ball on the ground all the time. But anyway,
Yeah,
I think he figured some things out there a little bit with you guys.
yeah, yeah.
So.
He's been a valuable player for us for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
So.
he was fun to watch, but it's like, man, just hit the ball there. All right, good stuff. All right, so we did have a question come in here. So,
Okay.
do you think it's a good idea if anyone has like interest in maybe getting involved in some capacity around major league teams is there a way for guys, whether they're in their years now or in college, to just sort of message like to just kind of get internships? Like you mentioned going to the winter meetings there, but what are some other avenues, the guys can take to maybe just make a contact or, put in a resume or to inquire about different internships and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah.
What I probably so what I probably wouldn't do is I wouldn't blast the entire organization.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I would absolutely recommend is like if you can figure out if you can figure out a contact within an organization, um, or multiple contacts within an organization, absolutely go through them. Say, hey, I'm looking to get into the business of baseball,
Hmm.
um, and I would come at it from a
Yeah.
asking standpoint. And what's do you have any recommendations? Are there any internships available? Are there any jobs available? Can you point me in the right direction? Shoot, I actually went as far one time as to like basically guess what the standard email format was for a specific team and just take a shot. And
Yeah.
because most teams do have a standard email format
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
everybody has. Um, so however you go about it, but overall, I would say yes, absolutely. I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is to ask questions to anybody you can within a major league organization about getting into it.
So don't be shy. Like worst case scenario
Yeah,
is nobody replies, right?
yeah,
You're not going to get on some blacklist or someone's going to like tell you like, hey, don't anybody reply to this person ever again. So take your shot. Nothing wrong with that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And what I would say too is specifically working in Major League Baseball is that it is a difficult application
Hmm.
process. And
Hmm.
so my recommendation would be to basically try to increase the amount of potential application
Yeah.
opportunities that you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
So don't put all of your eggs, to the extent that you can put yourself in multiple application pools from multiple different
Hmm.
teams.
Hmm.
Absolutely would recommend that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like we talked about, maybe if there's some minor league organizations or other
Yeah,
organizations as well, build a resume, get involved, or maybe that's then a connection that you can have for down the road. You mentioned you started out at stats, and we're doing Japan shoot probably were late nights and things like that, up doing
yeah,
things. So it's like sometimes you got to grind a little bit, before maybe you get to that point where you have the little bit more of the more high prestige sort of position too, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, but I think yeah, any of those are what you mentioned are you know
Yeah.
positive experiences, and then yeah, from there, like I talked about earlier, I think just kind of building that
Hmm.
network base and only putting yourself in a position where
Yeah.
you have more opportunities that you know are available and that you can pursue.
Awesome. Awesome. Good stuff. Well, I just threw that link to the survey in the chat box there again, guys. Again, would love to get some feedback if you didn't click on that yet. But any other questions before we wrap some things up? Don't want to leave anything out there. All right. So another one just popped in here real quick. So let's see. So would you recommend a talented younger player play? So it's a good question here. So let me get your thoughts on this here, Tyler. So we
Yeah.
got a younger player. I can maybe play up a little bit against some older guys, push myself, challenge myself a little bit, or do I, is it be more of like kind of the best guy in my age group and maybe kind of stick there? If you're thinking like maybe big picture, maybe not just for that year, but maybe big picture, what do you think might be a good path potential? And again, there's a lot of more nuance to that, because every situation is different. But in general, what are some thoughts that might you provide for a family like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a tough question
Yeah, yeah,
because I think it's very case dependent.
sure, yep.
Uh, I think in particular, based on what you are interested in trying to accomplish, I think
Mm-hmm.
if the goal is if what comes to mind, I think, is if you are trying to uh, get recruited to the best college opportunity that you can. I think probably putting yourself in a position where you're the best in your age
Mm-hmm.
group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, however, I would argue, I think I could make the argument
Yeah.
that if you're the youngest, that it can behoove you to challenge yourself with people who are better than you, and that will in turn make you better.
Yeah.
Additionally, I would say like on a totally different level, if you're trying to sign a professional contract, if you are that good and you're trying to sign a professional contract coming out of high school, uh, I could make the argument that being the younger player is the better way to go, because teams will specifically that will carry weight that you are a young for class player if you are
Yeah.
truly performing at an elite level still.
I think you hit on all of the different things that I would say too. Like, because there's definitely like no necessary right or wrong answer. It's probably
Yeah,
just about finding the best situation for yourself
yeah,
individually. You certainly wouldn't want to play up and then not play, right? To just be on a team and sit the bench either. So if it's a sacrifice of big playing time, like so, I mean, we could probably talk about that one alone for an entire workshop, right? And maybe I'll schedule a workshop and we'll have that conversation. But no, so I think that you hit on some of the things to think about there, right? Challenging yourself, but also, hey, if you're a 17-and-a-half-year-old senior and you're the same capability of that 19-year-old senior, yeah, you're right. I'm going with the younger dude because that guy's got more time to grow still, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's good question. It's a tough
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
no right
if
answer.
yeah, if you have any other questions around kind of your specific scenario, definitely reach out to us, man. We would love to help you with that. Schedule a session. You would love to go over that with you. Yes, we'll send out a recording here later on. All right, I think we're going to make this the last question here, Tyler, and I want to get you out of here. And I've got another workshop coming up here too. But
Sure.
are there any courses or anything that's maybe out there publicly, certainly maybe once you get to college or maybe, but regarding learning about like analytics or sports management, are there any sort of like sort of educational things you could recommend or anything, books maybe even that you might recommend or anything like that for someone who's maybe not into college yet that they could maybe start to learn about some of these things?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. So I am sure there are plenty of, I'm not too aware of it, but I'm
Yeah.
sure there are many of college sports analytics classes
Mm-hmm.
that are out there these days that are very valuable and helpful classes
Yeah.
to take. I did not really get exposed to sports analytics through high school or through college myself. Um, in terms of analytics courses, so that have been helpful. I use Fangraphs a lot.
Oh yeah.
That's a
I
good
follow that as
website.
well. Yep.
Um, there's a they have a really good glossary
Mm-hmm.
on there.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty informative. I think websites like Baseball Prospectus,
Mm-hmm.
I mean even something, let's see, Baseball America, all that's not quite as much of an analytics
Mm-hmm.
slant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anything by Tom Tango. He runs a blog that's usually that can be instructive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say generally just looking around the internet for various sites like that
Yeah.
or sites that come up in conjunction with that.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of those, it's to me, a lot of it is there's websites where it's okay, we have all of the statistics and we have all of the um, like a lot of the tools already that you can browse through, and then there are others where it's more of a kind of a blog discussion,
Yeah.
if you will,
Yeah.
that you can learn from.
Yep. And that's the stuff where you can kind of learn some of that next level thinking when you read how other people are sort of applying their thinking to, not just like you said, not just having the numbers, but how do we now assess these numbers and what they mean, right?
Right,
Yep.
right.
Yep. Yep.
I want to look up. Yeah, I would definitely recommend the book. It's called The Book, Playing the
Yeah.
Percentages in Baseball.
Okay.
That would be a pretty impactful one if you want a good introduction to baseball analytics.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, I think we're going to leave it at that, man. So, Tyler, this was awesome. I really appreciate your time tonight. I know that everybody else here, I'm sure, found it helpful as well. But I will send out a recording here in a little bit. I'm sure if y'all have any questions, follow up. I could probably get to Tyler, and then maybe if there's something you had for him that you think of afterwards, I can maybe get an answer from him as well. But man, appreciate the time tonight. Good luck with your guys' upcoming season, of course, and appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. So
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to
yeah,
answer any questions after. Appreciate everybody joining. Thank you for the time and for setting it up. Appreciate it.
absolutely, you got it. Well, everybody have a great night, and hopefully we'll see you guys in some workshops here again soon. Everybody, take care.
Thanks, Andy.
Yep. Bye, Tyler.
See ya.